day today.
It's the first time for us to be broadcasting like this around the world. Of course, we've got some people on the phone this morning, and we're talking to Lucky, and Lucky is joining us from the United Nations Library in Zambia. Hello, Lucky. Good afternoon, good morning from Canada, Northern Canada. It's very good to hear from you. Just a moment, Lucky, on the other phone we have with us, as we just spoke to him, Spurger's Solon. Good morning, Spurger.
Good morning. It's afternoon here in Sweden.
And on the line with us this evening is Rand Salmon, who is the International Communications Coordinator for International Employer. Rand, thanks for joining us this evening.
Yeah, hi, Renee. I think it's morning for me.
Right, of course. It's morning for you, and it's also the afternoon for our friends at the Rollystone Primary School. Mrs. Cotter, can you tell us a little bit about your school and where you're from?
Yes, our school, Rollystone Primary School, is situated in the hills in Perth, Western Australia. I've got a wonderful class here that's sitting with bated breath waiting to speak to somebody and ask them a multitude of questions.
Been all around the world, and we are so thrilled to have the station manager from the Mawson Science Research Station in Antarctica on the line. Hello, Narelle.
Hi, Nate. How are you?
Good. You're coming in loud and clear from Antarctica. Narelle, we've got the honor of having on the line with us the Grand Chief of the Dead Show First Nations. And just so you know, the Dead Show First Nations are a region in the Northwest Territories here, consisting of about 10 Aboriginal communities. Hello, Jerry.
Hello.
Yeah, hi, Jerry. How are you?
Oh, pretty good. I'm pretty happy that CiCAT has given us the opportunity of connecting the world that we work in.
Okay, so I just thought I'd start with a little clip that CKLB here in Yellowknife produced for International People Day. They were pretty amazing partners to work with. And when I was just sitting here this morning hearing people talk about using radio as a way to talk to communities, and it certainly is something that I think can be used very successfully. And what we discovered is it's a way of connecting people, not just across the north, but around the world. Because International Polar Year, while we tend to be focusing on our own projects and our partners, some of that's tied to where our money came from and things like that, this was probably the largest international science effort that has ever been organized. And we're still waiting to see what the results are going to be, but the general consensus is it was worth all of the blood, sweat, and tears. So let me start with a quiz. 6 years ago, if we were holding a meeting in this room in May 2003, how many of you would have heard of IPY? Not a fair question. You know that for breakfast? Yes. Okay, so one. And maybe 2004, a year later. Okay, Swan, that's not fair. That's not fair. The bottom line is that it was only in about 2002 that IPY even appeared on the radar. And in fact, until 2006, we really didn't even have a firm commitment of funding for any of this work. And it's easy to forget just how we started IPY at the very beginning. It was because we realized we needed to work together. We needed to work with partners, scientists, communities, internationally, in order to answer some of these big questions. Some of them are big questions globally, but they matter at the local level as well. So I want to come back to this at the end, because the issue of sustainability and continuity of the work we're doing is rather critical right now. So IPY has responded to a whole lot of issues related to rapid change. There's a lot of public and media and political interest in the Arctic, and there's a need for good information to inform policy, public policy. And I don't think that anyone of us or any of our groups have a monopoly on knowledge, and sharing knowledge is really going to be the legacy of IPY. It's also probably the greatest challenge of IPY. IPY different from some of these other international years? So it's 2009. 2009 is also the International Year of Astronomy. It's the International Year of Natural Fibers. Last year was the International Year of the Potato. That was a particularly confusing one because that's IYP. Last year was the International Year of the Frog, the International Year of the Reef, International Year of Planet Earth, International Year of Languages. At the beginning of IPY, we shared the stage with the International Year of Dolphins, International Geophysical Year, Electronic Geophysical Year, both of those last two being part of the 50th anniversary of the last IPY, which was the Geophysical Year of 1957-58. So what made IPY special? I think it's just about time we could have an International Year of International Years. They're sort of become a little bit routine, but this one was different. There were 63 countries. There was somewhere between $400 and $1,000 million of new funding internationally that was available, some $1 billion into the system over the last few years. Estimates of something like 50,000 participants, scientists, students, people from communities, educators, and so on. And I think we did break down a lot of barriers of between disciplines and the discussions that you've had the last couple of days and other groups have had really sort of moved the bar forward very significantly. But we need to think about what comes next. The elements of an IPY project, of course, good research, data, management, collection of data, training and education, outreach and communications, and legacy. And in Canada, we put a real emphasis on Northern Partnership and capacity building. And that's not something you can do in just 2 years. So again, we'll come back to questions of sustainability and long-term commitments. So in terms of research, there has been an early assessment that the International Joint Committee for IPY released at the end of February this year, called the State of Polar Research. You can access it from all of the websites in about 21 different languages. It's a snapshot of some of the highlights of things that we learned during IPY, and we could publish very many thick volumes over the next year or two, I think. The next opportunity, big opportunity for this global community that was involved in IPY to share their results will be, as Greg mentioned, at the Oslo Science Conference, the IPY Open Science Conference next June. And there have been submissions of sessions for that meeting, and there will be a large public component and education and outreach component to that as well. More of that information should be available by June, but we certainly would encourage people to participate or think about participating in that meeting. There will be other group meetings over the next year, and Canada has offered to host a final IPY wrap-up conference in 2012, and this would be a conference that would link science and policy exclusively. So how do we use knowledge to inform decision-making? We have to think about the synthesis of our results, not just within project teams, but between project teams. How will that be achieved? What types of priorities would we address if we did have new funding available? Part of why we were successful in receiving funding for IPY was because early on we could identify some priorities and address a mechanism for doing that work. We need to do the same thing